Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about how to find bias in a new lake, part 2. So, things I consider before hitting the water from the last video. 1, seasonal pattern. Where are those fish moving? Where are they heading and what are they doing? Number 2, what cover and structure are in the lake? What can I find before I get there? And number 3, water clarity. Now, number 3 and number 4 roll together here. Water clarity and water temperature are going to be key to finding fish. In the spring, from about ice out to about 45 degrees, I am looking at deep structure and transition areas. From 45 to 55, I'm looking solely at those hard spots, those transition areas where fish are moving into spawn. From 55 to 65, I am looking fish on the bed. Once those fish are on the bed, in that 60, 62 degree range, they're going to be on the bed for a while. But once they are off the bed, those fish are going to split into 2 groups. Half of those fish are going to move back out deep to recover from the spawn. Half of them are going to stay shallow. Same thing in the fall, right? Once we hit that 50 to 60 degree range, those fish are pushing up to feed heavily. And then once it drops into the 50s, into the 40s, we follow those fish back to transition areas, back out to deeper, stable water, holding patterns. Now, that's straight up water temperature. Clarity can change all of that. Right? So in these clips right here, we're watching us catch bass shallow on moving baits. Now, when you're considering water clarity and water temperature, you got to think, is this lane typically murky or stained, or is it straight up muddy because it rained? Think of straight up muddy because it rained as like brown chocolate milk water. Think of stained water as that darker tint, tannic colored water that fish can really see in, right? Because the clarity of water is going to determine where those fish are on cover. The darker and dingier the water, the muddier the water, the tighter fish will be to cover. Think about if you're walking around in a room with no lights and you have to find your way around. The first thing you're going to do is reach out, try to find a wall so that you can move around that room with one hand on something. Fish are exactly the same. Here we got Caden rigging up a Cinco. We are fishing muddy water. He chose black and blue, right? And what I'm doing is throwing a moving bait. He's following it up and hitting the very precise pieces of cover where fish are staging ready to ambush. Remember, bass are ambush predators. They are opportunity feeders. So what I'm doing is I'm buzzing something past their face. Caden's following up with a bait. If they swing and miss at mine, they're going to follow up and hit that bait hard. This is a pure water clarity, water temperature pattern we are running right here. This is a fall time bite, dark, dirty water. Fish are close to cover, and you can take advantage of that simply by understanding the situation in front of you. So water clarity and water temperature really go together, right? Work deep to shallow. Once the spawn happens, go shallow to deep. The fish are staying in their seasonal patterns. That water clarity will help you determine where they are, right? It's a great way to eliminate a lot of water before you actually have to put lines in the water. Now, clear water is going to be the exact opposite. Clear water is going to scatter fish out to deeper water, to deeper flats, and they're going to be primarily sight hunting. Now, water clarity affects bait selection and fish positioning, but the main thing I want to think about in clear water here we're on Lake Maxinkuckee catching smallmouth, and smallmouth and clear water bass are sight feeders. So, what I want to look for anytime I'm in clear water, I'm going to start on northern natural lakes in that 8 to 10 foot range, right where those weeds top out and you start to get a sand edge or a mud edge up against the weed line. And that's just a great spot to look, and I'm going to fish reaction type baits on those places, right? Reaction baits being jerk baits, swim baits, spinner baits, Alabama rigs, crank baits. I want something in clear water moving along at a good clip that's going to force that fish to either commit and eat the bait or not. So, great thing to think about in clear water situations is finding offshore structure. I am an offshore structure fisherman all day. I love getting on my electronics, finding stuff that people miss, and catching fish that are less pressured. Now, when you get on this offshore structure in this clear water, you really got to trust the baits you're throwing. You really got to trust and milk an area. Here, we're hitting a break line in 8 to 12 feet of water where these smallmouth are positioned. We're throwing jerk baits over their heads, flukes, They're coming up and literally annihilating these baits. And we're going to put together a heck of a bag here on Maxi by simply using water clarity as a judge of where to fish, right? Let's listen in. We're having a great time. Schooling smallmouth, Max and Cookie. There's nothing more fun than this, guys. Seriously. If you haven't been to this lake, you are missing out. But that's fine because there's more for us. So, good night. First light, sun coming up, big smallmouth. What's better than that, baby? Now, guys, the final piece of the puzzle is matching the hatch. Now, what do we mean by matching the hatch? Before you start to select the baits that you want to fish with that day, you want to drive around the lake and see what bait is the predominant forage. Now, what the heck do we mean by predominant forage? You want to understand, are your bass feeding on primarily bluegill, panfish, crappie, or are they feeding on shad, gizzard shad, threadfin shad, emerald shiners? And you want to try to match that hatch. Now, the rule that I live by is, in a clear lake, bass are going to be drawn to those more natural colors. Remember, fish are adapted to the world that they live in. So if you have a clear water lake, all of the fish are going to be clearer, right? So this is where you want to use your translucent baits, your shinier baits. So a white spinner bait with a gold or silver blade, a spinner bait with a translucent skirt, a jerkbait with translucent colors in it, your blues, your purples, your more natural hues. The darker the water gets, the louder I want my bait to be, right? In terms of soft plastics, clear water, I'm fishing whites, pearls, smokes, green pumpkins. Darker the water, louder the bait, right? That's where you want your blacks, your reds, your blues, your purples, your black and blue flake, black and red flake. In between water, I want to mix in colors that I think are going to give me a little bit more advantage. So if I'm fishing clear water that's got a slight tint to it, I really like green pumpkin red flake or green pumpkin black flake, or there's this power bait color called breen. Those are really natural colors, but they give it a little bit more pop. If I'm fishing slightly darker shades, I like those purples. I like those black and blues. But what this does is it allows you to match the hatch and find the predominant forage. Now, light penetration is a big deal in that. If it's high, bright sun, I want colors that are going to reflect that sun, because bait fish and bluegill will reflect that sun when they're swimming. Same deal with dark, cloudy days. I want those matte colors that are really going to pop and stick out, right? Difference in jerk baits. I'm going to throw a clearer jerkbait on sunnier, clearer days, and on darker, colder, windier days, I'm going to throw a jerkbait that has that matte color that sticks out louder, that has that white in it, that has that hard flash, that hard wobble. Same thing with crankbaits. You know, I want a narrower running crankbait that's going to be a faster kick in clear water, and I want a deeper thump so that fish can find it in darker, dingier water. Bait selection is honestly the last part of the formula here that I use to find fish on lakes. Bait selection really comes down to what you're seeing right in front of you. You got to fish the moment, right? Mike Iaconelli always talks about fishing the moment. He's one of my favorite anglers. True and very applicable here. Look at what's in front of you, fish what's in front of you, and always be paying attention to changing conditions, right? Changing conditions will move fish up and down. I'm going to do a whole series about offshore fishing. A lot of guys are scared off of offshore fishing because they don't understand it. A lot of guys, especially in northern natural lakes, beat the bank a lot. That's one of the video series that I want to do coming up here in the future. So if you guys enjoyed the video, give us a like, give us a subscribe. Please let us know in the comment section, guys, what videos you would like us to do in the future, what lakes you want us to visit, what baits you want us to talk about, anything that we can do to help you guys with your fishing. We're all about that. Really looking forward to the spring coming up. Got a big bait series coming up. Got a deep water series coming up. We got a lot of big plans for the future, guys, so let us know how we can help you in your angling. Thanks for tuning in today, guys. Peace. That didn't take long. And that's the kind you want right there. Drop shot.